Think you can't make your own sausage at home better than store-bought? I think that's a bunch of baloney. In this video, I'm going to walk you through how to make a ring sausage using our 211 bologna seasoning. When most people think about bologna, they think about the larger diameter deli-style meat. What we're going to be making today is a coarse-cut ring version that is going to be a lot better for different applications. The deli-style bologna that we often think of is an emulsified product. And you can tell because of that even coloration similar to hot dogs. This is going to be a coarse-cut version, which means it's not going to have the emulsification, and you'll see the particle definition once we cut into it. As far as the meat block goes, our bologna is going to be a pretty classic version. We're using about 70% pork and 30% beef. Then we're going to use some collagen casings, which we're going to soak to soften them up, and we're going to be using our 211 ring bologna seasoning. Now when you order this online at psseasoning.com, it is also going to come with the cure. Bologna is a cured and cooked sausage, and in our case it's going to be smoked. Our award-winning 211 bologna seasoning is going to have all the sugars, salts, and spices that are going to give us that classic bologna flavor. I cut our meat into grinder-sized pieces, and I've had it sitting in the freezer for about half an hour to get a really good kind of crust and chill on it. I also have the grinder pieces in the fridge staying cool as well. This recipe calls for a two-stage grind. We're going to start with a 3/8 inch plate that I have loaded up on our grinder already. Then we're going to switch that out for a 3/16, which is a much finer grind, and then we'll be ready to mix in our seasoning. First grind is done, so I'm going to reset our plate to the finer one and go for the second grind. Our meat block weighs just over 13 pounds, so I did the math and broke down our seasoning and our maple cure to the appropriate batch size. So I'll add the seasoning right into the meat block, and I'm going to be pretty gentle when I shake this on because I don't want this going up into the air. I want all that seasoning going into the meat. Same with our maple cure. The maple cure is a mixture of salts and sugars as well as the pink cure that is needed to cure our sausage overnight. I'm also going to add some water. And this water is going to help evenly distribute the seasoning throughout the meat block so that we don't have any areas without seasoning, and we also don't have any areas with too much. Then I'm just going to mix this all together, making sure the seasoning is even throughout. And we're going to start building that protein extraction to bind our proteins and our fats together. And there it is, nice and tacky, sticking to my hand when held upside down. That means our protein extraction has taken hold to bind those fats and proteins together, but we still have some really nice particle definition, which is going to give us a really nice tender sausage. At this point, we're going to set this aside and we're going to get our casings soaking so that we're ready to stuff. For this recipe, I chose a 40mm by 18-inch collagen casing. You can also use beef rounds or natural hog casings, which are also available at psseasoning.com. I have 1 gallon of 75-degree water, and I'm using just over a cup of non-iodized salt. I'm just going to add this in and give it a good stir till it's all dissolved, and then I'm going to pour it onto our casings in a bowl and let them soak. These casings are obviously pretty rigid now, but once they're soaked, they soften up really well and make it very easy to stuff. Now each one of these casings is going to hold about a pound of meat. So I'm going to make sure I have a few extra and count them out here. So the room temperature water, along with the salt, is going to soften up these collagen casings really well. The salt is also going to inhibit bacteria growth so we don't have any food safety issues. I set a plate on top of the casings just to make sure that they're really well submerged in our salt solution. And while these are soaking, I'm going to get our sausage stuffer set up. We have our casings soaking and it's time to get our sausage stuffer set up. So I'm going to fill the hopper here with our meat block, So I'm gonna add it to the hopper, and I'm gonna add it to the center and work that meat out towards the walls so that we can avoid and eliminate as many of those air pockets as possible. I've got the stuffer set up with a 1 1/4 inch horn, which is gonna work well for our 40mm casings. So I'll crank it down till the meat starts coming into the horn, and I'm gonna leave about 1 inch at the end. At that point, I'll back off the pressure, and now we can load our casings and start stuffing. So I'm gonna get the horn lubed up just a little bit, and our casings, you can see now, are really nice and pliable. So you can see the casing has a little bit of curvature to it, and once we're stuffed, that'll be the ring formation, and it'll make it easier to tie the other end so that we have our finished ring bologna. So I'm gonna thread on the casing. Work the air out of it a little bit. And now, I'm just gonna crank. I'm gonna keep even pressure on the casing as it fills. And then I'm gonna leave about 3 inches of casing unstuffed. I'm gonna pull that off, and this is gonna be the other end of our ring bologna here. So I'm gonna pinch and work as much of that air out as I can and give it a few twists. Then I'll grab the string from the other end and give it 2 twists on that, and then give it a tie. And then once that goes into the smokehouse, I'll hang it on the smoke stick like that, and we'll have our ring bologna ready to smoke. So for our last sausage here, we only got about half full. We've got a lot of meat left in this horn, so I'm gonna show you a trick to get all of that out. So I'm gonna back off the pressure, and what I'm actually gonna do is I'm gonna take the horn off. So we've got all that meat in there. I'm gonna take this little ring off there. I'm gonna keep the horn on the sausage. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take some plastic wrap, and I'm gonna wrap the horn the next size down in that plastic wrap, and these fit inside of each other. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this and push that meat through the horn right like that to get as much out as possible. I trade up our cased sausages, and I'm gonna set these in the fridge overnight. I prefer to let my sausage cure overnight because I think the developed flavors and colors that are a result of that are a little bit better for my preference. These are cured sausages, so if you want to go directly to the smoker and have that time, by all means. I prefer to do this also because this is going to start the drying process. We want to dry out those casings so we can get maximum smoke absorption in the smoker. We have our PK100 set up outside. I've preheated it to 100 degrees, and that's going to be for our first cycle on our smoke schedule, which is going to be a drying cycle. We want to dry out these casings a little bit more, because once those are dry, that's going to be a lot better for smoke absorption. And once we're ready to go out onto the smoker, we're just going to loop our bologna onto the smoke sticks, like that, and put them in the smoker. We want to make sure there's really good space in between all of them, so we have good airflow and even cooking. I let our sausage cool in the fridge for about 24 hours, and this is our final product. I'm really excited to taste it. It smells amazing. I used a pretty standard smoke schedule for these sausages. I started at 120 degrees for a drying cycle, and I did that for about an hour. Then I put some sawdust on the heating element and increased the temperature of the smokehouse to 170 degrees. I smoked it there for about 3 hours, at which point I increased the temperature one more time to 185 degrees. Then, with my probe in the sausage, I let it cook until we reached an internal temperature on these sausages of 156 degrees. Now, all these directions can be found on the website for ease and reference. After the sausages were fully cooked, I brought them inside and gave them an ice bath. That's going to pull some of the grease and extra smoke off the outside casings. It's also going to chill the meat a little faster than we can at room temperature. We also don't want to overcrowd our fridge, so that first initial drop in temperature is really crucial. After that, I let them dry in the fridge and cool completely for about 24 hours so that our final sausage is what we have here. Nothing left to do but try it. I have our flat top on, so I'm gonna break these down into some coins. I'm gonna leave some cold and I'm gonna fry some up on the flat top. I'm just gonna serve it with some crackers and cheese and we'll finally get to taste it. And now after 3 days, I finally get to taste our 211 ring bologna. Based on looks alone, it looks like it turned out really well. You can still see really good particle definition, those little pieces of fat, still bound with the protein. It's gonna make a really nice, tender and juicy bite. So for this taste test, I just got some cheese and crackers together. I fried up some of it on the flat top, but I also did leave some cold, because you can do both. This is a perfectly good sausage to eat cold with crackers. But frying it up does change the flavor profile a little bit, so we're gonna try both ways and see how it turned out. So I'm gonna taste this cold just like it is. It really does look nice and tender, and that particle definition is great. A really nice level of smoke from our PK100, so here we go. The texture, first off, is amazing. The definition, the initial flavor is salty, a little bit of sweet, smoky. It's absolutely delicious. It's honestly no wonder our 211 ring bologna seasoning has won lots of awards. The texture turned out great. These are really nice and tender. You can see the coloration is really even. That cure, I got it really nice and distributed throughout our meat block before smoking, so that really helped. And now I'm gonna try it fried, because that does definitely change the flavor profile. So you got a little bit of caramelization on there, looks really good. That fried bologna though, that little bit of caramelization on there, so good. The smoke smooths out a little bit, adds a little bit of sweetness to it. That was gonna be great on these sandwiches that I'm making a little later. So to say I'm happy with the way this turned out would be an understatement. I have a ton of ring bologna made up now, so I'm gonna make a bunch of different recipes, bunch of different applications. You could do breakfast, fried bologna sandwich, cheese and crackers. There's endless opportunities when you have this much sausage. So if you're looking for some of those recipes, you can check out our website and some of our social media platforms as well. So until next time, I'm Chef Jed. Thanks for watching.